Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. So at this time, I will go through our agenda today. Well, we'll approve the minutes, and then we'll go through our agenda. We have new business and presentations, a downtown public safety update. We're going to talk about the downtown design guidelines, and we'll look at development project impact review for 19 and 25 South French Broad. So first, I'd like to do we have any revisions or comments on our draft action minutes from August, our August meeting, or our draft action minutes from September 22nd? Again, the full minutes are basically the video recording that is available on the committee website. Any comments or revisions? Do I have a motion to approve either or both of those together?
Motion to approve, both the August and September minutes.
Cool. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So I do not believe we've received any public comment ahead of the meeting, correct?
Correct.
Very good. Do we have any public that would like to make a comment before we get into our agenda? You really can. It's okay. All right. Very good. No, Byron? All right. Our first item of business then is our downtown public safety update. We have Assistant City Manager, I think I did that right. Yeah, look at that. Ben Woody and Deputy Chief Mike Lamb and Mark Matheny, our DSD Director. Yeah, which is still getting my head around that. Very good.
Commission, thank you for giving us this opportunity to give you an update on our downtown public safety. I'll be starting it off this morning with our crime stats, both citywide for the year to date.
Deputy Chief, I'm not sure if microphones are on. I don't feel like I can hear him, so I'm sure that the people recording can't.
Can you hear me?
Testing.
I don't think it's on. I just hear you like you're in the room.
Do I need to speak louder then? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't want to hold us
interrupt.
up anymore.
We just want to make sure everybody.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for checking. Hey, look, there we are.
There
Okay.
we are.
There we go. But keep projecting that.
Okay, great. Sounds like it's gotten louder. Maybe I need to switch back to my inside voice. So, Mike Lamb, Deputy Chief with the Asheville Police Department. Thank you again for this opportunity to give a public safety update for downtown. I'll be starting out with our quarterly crime stats, year-to-date crime stats, and also crime stats specific to downtown. And then it'll be followed up by Mark Matheny doing our DSD update, and then Assistant City Manager Ben Woody. So key takeaways for violent crime. So violent crime has declined compared to 2022, but remains higher year-to-date than the previous 4 years. Significant improvement in violent crime within Central Asheville, particularly the Central Business District, has improved. Property crime continues to decline from the high in 2019, and quarter three, which runs July, August, September, is the most active quarter for property crime annually, but 2023 quarter three has shown a 10% decline from last year. So looking at citywide violent crime year to date, you can see the graph there from 2018 to 2023. Citywide violent crime has improved compared to last year, but remains higher than the 4 years prior. While citywide violence was down in the third quarter compared to the prior years, East and West Asheville saw an increase. Conversely, there's been a significant improvement in violent crime within Central Asheville, particularly within the Central Business District, due to proactive law enforcement efforts. So this is a breakdown of the beats for the Asheville Police Department. Baker is northeast, Charlie and David is central and South Asheville, all the way to the airport. And then Adam is West Asheville. And so that's a breakdown of all of our beats assigned to each district. Charlie District downtown reported 27 fewer violent crimes in quarter three compared to last year. Baker Northeast District has seen the greatest increase in violence with 9 additional crimes overall. Adam West District has experienced more violence in the western portion of Adam District. And David South District has fewer violent crimes overall. And within the violent crime comparison chart there, you can see the breakdown of the beats, 22 quarter 3, and then 23 quarter 3. The biggest increases were in Baker 1. Those are the shallow north area, so those are due to a combination of aggravated assaults and robberies, armed robberies in the shallow north area. So that's Montford, closer to downtown, 5 Points closer to downtown, and then Merriman Avenue around the Harris Teeter, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Shell Station, 40 Merriman Avenue area. And then you can see the shift also west. So that's that exit 44 area, and then some areas along east-west Asheville or the Haywood Road corridor. So citywide property crime year to date, property crime continues to decline from the 2019 high mark. However, changes in corporate policy and reduction of loss prevention staff contribute to the reduction in shoplifting calls for service. So we did this presentation for council last week, and what it showed was we did a comparison of Kohl's, Walmart on Hendersonville Road, Lowe's, a couple of other big box stores, and they've had policy changes within their reporting. So one example of that was Kohl's. So for last year, Kohl's stated within their report that they had, I think, just 5 incidents of shoplifting. Well, we know that's not correct. So there is underreporting within these big box stores, which shows us that there's a lot of larceny incidents that are not being reported, and that's just, I think that's a kind of a litmus test for what's going on citywide, because just in conversations that we've had with small business owners, they don't have the staff or the time to be able to go to court, take out warrants, do their own online report, especially, I mean, APD is understaffed, as you all know, but we also know a lot of other businesses are experiencing staffing crises as well. So looking at citywide property crime, quarter 3, July to September, Charlie District downtown reported a 16% drop in property crime in quarter 3 compared to last year. Baker Northeast District has seen an increase in Baker 4, which have offset the reductions in Baker 1. So Baker 4 is that Tunnel Road corridor, South Tunnel down to Swannanoa River Road is where they're experiencing those. Adam West District has reported 35 fewer property crimes in quarter 3 compared to last year. And then David South District property crime dropped by 25%. So shifting to downtown from citywide, downtown violent crime year to date, 21% lower year to date compared to 2022, down 24% compared to the 5-year average. So when you see the violent crime was highest in 2019 and then 2021, and then 2022 and then 2023, we're down to the 41. So we contribute this decrease in violent crime to the increase in proactive enforcement efforts. Downtown property crime, we're 8% lower year to date compared to 2022 and down 12% compared to the 5-year average. So key takeaways, violent crime has declined compared to 2022 but remains higher year to date than the previous 4 years. Significant improvement in violent crime within central Asheville, particularly within the central business district. Property crime continues to decline from the high in 2019. And then quarter 3 is the most active quarter for property crime annually, but 2023 quarter 3 is still showing a 10% decline from last year. What questions do you have?
So, Deputy Chief, you live in this world and are used to it. You're using the uniform crime reporting, so you're using a standard reporting metric for what crimes go into which category, correct?
That is correct. So
you report those to the clearinghouse and then pull the data back out.
Yes, some of those crimes don't. Some crimes are not collected by NIBRS. UCR has actually shifted over to NIBRS, and that's a federal, it's NIBRS, the National Incident-Based Reporting System, right. And that is the requirement of the FBI for us to shift over to that, and that's
Okay.
so we can keep up with FEMA grants and all that, or grants and all that. So yes, our main Part 1, Part 2 crimes, homicides, assaults, all of our crime that is supposed to be mandated to be reported to the FBI. That's what that's based on. Because we have calls for service, and then we have actual events. If we looked at calls for service, there's a lot more calls for service, because sometimes a call for service doesn't result in a report.
In a report, or even in a charge. And so I just want to make it clear that you're using a national standard to determine what is a property crime versus a violent crime, so on and so forth, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I think when we first started looking at this, and you alluded to it in terms of the property crime, there was a decrease in the number of calls. Do you believe that based on the number of calls for service that you're getting, that the calls for service has increased again? In other words, is the violent crime, property crime decreases in the Central Business District a result of people not reporting or calling for service, or do we just? I don't know if I'm making it clear.
You know, it's a good question.
And provided information and provided a level of access to these resources. And so that's our goal. Next week, I believe, we're actually having our startup meeting. So we're just, we've got 3 defined major meetings for this. Is we're going to do just kind of a whiteboard meeting, and then a more detailed, and then kind of a design meeting for that. But that's our goals with that. And so that's it. And glad to answer any questions.
No questions, but I didn't realize the ADU guide was done. So that's awesome. I'm looking at it right now. It looks good.
Thank you.
We talked about that for a long time.
Long time.
Is the downtown guide primarily a development guide, or is it a doing business in downtown guide, or all of the above guide?
Yeah, so that's an amazing question, and the right question, right? And that's what our whiteboard session, which is our first session next week, is going to be, is who is this for, right? What are we trying to do? And we're going to basically, once again, kind of debrief and unpack what we learned in the initiative and see who really needs this information, right? Who is the most requester for that? Maybe it's half and half. Honestly, we don't want to create a novel because nobody's going to read a novel. We really want a graphic document that we can, post and have online and basically have physically somewhere. So we're still working into that question.
I have a question about STR enforcement and exactly how that works. I think that it's well known. There's a lot of short-term rentals in Asheville. Some of them are not in compliance. What constitutes enough evidence to elicit action from your department when non-compliance is observed by a citizen?
Sure. Come to PED in November. I'm doing a whole presentation on that one too.
That's great.
Yeah, so that is coming up in a couple of weeks. It is a question that many people have, and we still have a full team working on that, and we see quite a few. Whether it's information, I don't know if it's actually a complaint, but we do have a lot of people that call in to us and identify whether that is. And there's still a program, there's a licensing or a permitting program that basically starts you off to see if you can comply originally, right? And there's some legislation that has changed how things have to be done. And so we evaluate those, that information that comes to us and see if they're already on the boards, right? If they're already one that's been permitted or allowed to happen, and if they are, then it doesn't. And honestly, it's almost 50%. But then we also have, and if it's not, then we go through an enforcement process, right? We identify to the owner that they're not in compliance, and see if there's a way to get them there, if that's possible, and if not, then we continue to pursue that. And we have a software that we use literally multiple times a day. that just mines all of that information, right? And they're getting a little better by calling it different things that the software hasn't caught up with, but we actually use a software, a huge beneficial value to us, and they basically every day, every night, they just mine all the ads that are for that type of service, and we pull those pieces and identify whether they are in compliance as well. But I have a much more detailed one at PED on the 14th. So
Yeah, no, I'll be there, and I might send you an email. Let me get your card before you go. I might send you an email because I'm doing a deep dive on this.
Okay,
and,
yeah, terrific.
And I want to know everything, so.
I don't know everything,
Right.
but
I want to know everything knowable.
Yes, there you go.
Say that.
That's great, Andrew. Council has been raising some concerns about this and kind of throwing flags on, are we really enforcing this and what's the situation? So it is coming to PED and then possibly onto council, we'll see. But some of the information I've already seen gives me hope. But I'm also curious to see what you come up with. And I know currently the Asheville Watchdog is doing a series on tourism. And I know I've been receiving some phone calls about short-term rental data and so on. So I suspect they'll be doing a bit of an investigation into it. Because I think the community is just kind of wondering, where is this at? What is the situation? And after the language change or that bill change, we can't exactly permit them anymore, but we do have this option called zoning compliance, which Mark was just kind of speaking to. So more coming soon.
Yeah.
Lots more.
I mean, there's one in my neighborhood, and I know that you couldn't put a coffee house there because it's commercial, but somehow you can put a short-term rental, which that's also commercial. It's not residential use. And I know that's sort of debatable, and our guardrails are narrowing at the state level, but they're not closed.
Right.
So I want to see
Yeah.
exactly what that opening is and what we can do to possibly restore some of housing, some long-term housing.
That's
where
come
we
up in the
possibly-
past, the commercial aspect, because we talked about this like a year and a half ago. Apparently, if you are a commercial structure, and you architects in the room will agree, you have to meet certain ADA compliance. And so when we started
it's a
seeing a
public
lot of,
accommodation, yes.
yeah, so when we started seeing a lot of whole house rentals, which are not allowed, by the way, not allowed to have a whole house rental. But when we started seeing that and not being able to enforce them, some of the chatter was around, well, what if we zone them, commercial? Then at least they have to come ADA compliant, and you'd have to do stuff. It wouldn't just be like turn on the short-term rental, it'd take effort. So
Get creative.
yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mark?
Thanks again. Great to see you all.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Tag.
Yes. I'm going to go really quickly. I looked at your agenda, and we're way over time. So I can talk as little or as much as you'd like me to. Ben Woody, Assistant City Manager. First thing I want to do is and he's Deputy Chief Lamb's left, but Deputy Chief Lamb and Mark Matheny are both new in their positions, but I want to recognize and appreciate the energy and the effort that they're putting into those positions and trying to be responsive to community needs. And I feel like that was obvious today by both their presentations. I'm going to touch a little bit on how the city and partners are addressing homelessness. I think we've got Emily Ball lined up to come maybe in December. Is that right? She'll give you a real deep dive on kind of what the city's doing in this space. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But this first slide, and I always like how audacious our homeless services division is with this, but their goal is to end homelessness. And that's what they want to do. And the first step in that is providing housing to people. And so that is a laser focus of that division. A couple things I want to highlight. We actually have started a city staff meeting with the service providers that are located in the Carter Ann Street area. So that's Haywood Street, the Mission, Homeward Bound, and Salvation Army. We meet with those providers monthly. We actually had our monthly meeting yesterday, so the timing of that was really great. And I think that's a representation of how the city is trying to work in the space with our nonprofit partners to be responsive to some of the needs that come up. One is getting people into housing, but also trying to address some of the concerns that exist around the Carter Ann Street area. And that's been a fantastic meeting because it's given us a chance at the city to get to know those partners better and develop those relationships, but it also lets us understand what their needs are and how we can help them be successful. But also it's a time for us to tell them the concerns that we're hearing from the community. So that's been, I think, a really positive interaction in terms of working together. We've got an education series that the Homeless Services Division is sponsoring. I went to one of those a few weeks ago in the library downtown, Pack Library. great, fantastic opportunity. I'm sure we can send out more information on the dates, but that's a great way to learn more about the response to homelessness. Second slide real quick. I'm not going to read all this to you, but these are just some of the investments that the city and our partners have made to try and address homelessness. Compass Point Village is managed by Homeward Bound, and that is permanent supportive housing with wraparound services. Learned yesterday they have more than 60 of those housing units filled, so that means more than 60 individuals now have housing and mental health and the support they need to try to get off the street and get into some sort of permanent housing. There's other projects that are underway to create more capacity. I think probably next week we'll have a Code Purple situation. So hard to imagine, it's so beautiful this week, but that's where we're at. But Code Purple is up and running. We have great partners that do that. My understanding is we have plenty of beds. So when Code Purple nights are called, we will have capacity for those in need. One thing that I think is a great adjustment for this year's program is it used to be kind of really based on the temperature alone, but we all know it can be 40 and rainy and be absolutely miserable. So they are trying to be a little more strategic in calling Code Purple. So it's not just when it's below freezing. It'll be called when it is unsafe to be outside. And again, that can be a combination of different environmental elements. The other thing that the city and county did is they are funding $875,000 to open 43 year-round shelter beds, and those are opening soon. Things are underway. You see those beds are spread across kind of 3 different organizations. Those beds are really targeted towards, I think, individuals and families, and those will be referrals. So again, another kind of tool or service that exists trying to capture the range of homelessness that exists in this community. So again, we're really excited about those beds coming online as well. Any questions on homelessness?
I do have a question about the Shangri-La, because I've heard a lot of misinformation. I don't know if it's misinformation. Can you just give us an update on what's happening at Shangri-La?
I think there's been some construction challenges with that, but my understanding is that is still scheduled to move forward and open. I don't have a specific date, but and it's on the slide. But I vetted this with Emily, but we're still hoping to have that facility open and available first quarter of 2024. So
even though construction is paused.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what I learned because I was just looking into this and making some calls. There are several projects throughout the city that are dealing with bank lending challenges, financing, all this stuff. And I know, what I understand is Shangri-La changed contractors, and that's not that abnormal, but it did cause some delays. And then there's updates to paperwork, and now they got to get back on board. And I understand they are still lining up some financing, and that seems to be the hold.
But I think, and I'm sure Mark's aware of a lot of that because he's in the permit office when he's not doing nuisance enforcement. But I think what we can do is have maybe Emily prepared to give a really deep dive on where that's at.
Awesome.
Okay.
There's a lot of information floating about that project.
There is. That's a good question, and I don't want to say anything inaccurately, but I'm sure we can get a more detailed view of that project and what we're trying to do as a city and county. Anything else on homelessness? I only have one more slide, so or 2 more, but one's the next steps. Real quickly, again, I'm not going to read this slide to you, but we do want to do better with how we communicate. And one thing that I want us to do as an organization is I want to provide the information that you want or that the community needs. So we're going to we'll have some formulaic information sharing, but we want to tell you what you want to hear, and then we want to have feedback from you on what you want to share. And so one commitment we've made, and Sage alluded to this, is we're going to come to this meeting every other month, and we're going to talk about public safety and cleanliness. We're committed to that. We checked in with Brian before this one, and I hope you feel like we addressed what you asked, but I want you to tell us what you want to hear. If you tell us what you want to hear, we'll make sure the subject matter expert is at this meeting to tell you that. So, and you of course, go ahead, Brian.
So with that, when we send out the agenda, you see what's on it. If there's specific things that you want to know like that, anything that you want to know like that, let me know so that I can ask. We may not get it for that meeting, but we'll get it in a meeting so that we can get the information you or your constituencies need.
Looks like Dana's got something.
I'll just, add that knowing that we intend to provide these updates every other month. Just keep that in mind. Keep Brian informed on the types of subject matter you're most interested in so that we can prepare ahead of time and get that to you.
And it doesn't always have to be me talking. If you just want to tell us things, we can come listen as well. So,
Yeah, that's helpful.
okay.
So I've definitely noticed from sitting here that staff has been more informative, more engaged, and more helpful with this body, and the attention's appreciated. It's made a difference as far as the stories we're telling about what's happening, what we know about what we can do, what we know about what we can't do, and all that. So I appreciate.
Well, thank you for that.
It has been, as having sat here for 6 years almost. It's been clear in the past year that there's been a new level of attention here, and it's very appreciated. And I think helpful to the city, not just to us, but helpful to the whole operation.
I agree. I like having these conversations. And the other thing that we're doing is we have a monthly, we're trying to keep our webpage updated. Not everybody goes to city web pages.
Really?
Y'all probably do, but a lot of people probably don't. But the big piece of that is we're going to send out a monthly newsletter, so we want to be a little more proactive. We're targeting, I think, the third week of the month. I'm not going to put us on a specific day, but about the third week of November, we'll have another update come out. And again, so what you could do as a body is get your constituents and stakeholders to subscribe to that newsletter. And again, we want to not be formulaic, but we want to push information that's relevant at that moment or time. So please help us make the best use of that as well.
Thank you, Ben. You know, some of this is that council has been hearing from businesses for many, many weeks now, and these were some of the most consistent requests. So I really appreciate staff saying, okay, we hear you and we're going to do it, because I know you guys already have so much on your plate. One thing that comes to mind is when kind of major projects happen. So this additional work on College Street around the sidewalk. At council, we heard from some businesses, or at least one business that came forward and begged us not to do it during the holiday kind of thing. And if you remember, when we were getting ready to do Haywood Street, we thought it was going to be this whole huge disaster for all of those businesses, and then COVID happened and it turned out okay. But when we see these big things, like a whole block of sidewalks and street trees are coming out and going back in, and it's going to be over like a 3-month period. I mean, it's going to be a mess right on Patton Avenue, right near where those bike lanes are going. Sorry, I said bike lanes. But those kind of things might be great in the updates. You know, when businesses or part of downtown will see a broad impact over a few months.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that as well. Again, we want to share information as efficiently as we can. My last slide, again, I know we've taken up. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or I guess more so like a point, from a communication standpoint with this newsletter, something that I hear a lot in community is when these numbers are thrown out, like $850,000 for 43 beds, why is it so expensive for 43 beds, right? Like how we got to that number, I think is really relevant to the community and understanding and championing what's happening. I think also seeing the word cleanliness 3 times on one slide and not knowing what that means in a city that I grew up in that I feel is pretty clean, and knowing that historically that word has been used to disenfranchise people, I think the community would like to know what you mean by clean. Yeah. And what does that look like? Yeah. So I think getting clarity on
I can tell you it doesn't mean pressure washing the Wall Street parking garage stairs.
I think people, a lot of times people don't trust these really big numbers and these really simple words. And so from a communication standpoint, I think people are doing a good job. I would just like to know more about how that's happening and why things cost so much money.
At least the ability to drill down.
Okay. Yeah, I won't answer. Those are good questions. I won't do that today. No, sure. But yeah, I don't. Danny, do you want to add?
For Emily, we can pass on.
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I want to be transparent, and I want to. Words matter. Sure. So I think the suggestion to be a little more thorough or go a little deeper is reasonable, and we can do that. So thank you. Yeah. Because to your point, cleanliness, I have learned means a lot of different things to different people. So. Fair.
Even Michelle was just mentioning pressure washing garages, but I wonder if another future update might be what's happening with all our parking decks, because there's a lot happening.
So go ahead and go to next steps. Perfect. You've got stuff up there. One of the ones I'm interested in, and it's kind of under cross agency, is I'm trying to follow and figure out what's going on with the responder program and where that's, if that gets restarted, if it's going to be continual, and how that's going to continue to integrate. Yep. That's something I'd be interested in knowing more on going forward.
It's still happening, and it's growing, but to your point, that'd be a great one.
Yeah, but it's, you know, the first thing kind of ran out there. I know all that's, but we don't know.
Yeah, it'd be a great.
Yeah, again, another great topic. We could have.
We could have you here every month.
We keep y'all busy for like a year.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're a curious bunch.
Again, I won't deep dive on that, but that will continue. Matter of fact, I'll just say this, the city's in the process of adding peer support response as part of that program. So it won't just be firefighters, it'll be people that are trained in peer support. So you'll have a multidisciplinary response. Cross-agency collaboration means making sure that is in sync with the county's community paramedic program. So we don't want to duplicate services. We have to make sure that we're in spaces that are complementary and are working together. So that's where we have to do a better job as the city of working with our partners in the county and with our nonprofits.
I'll just flag too, in the downtown update report, there's a link to a recent presentation at the Environment and Safety Committee that the community responders did about their program.
Right.
If we were to go through every single thing happening downtown, I mean, we can't, but focusing on some of these top priority issues every other month with the city manager's office, and in my reports, I also have a link to the Patton Avenue sidewalk. So we're doing our best to cover what has the most impacts on you all, and just keep that report in mind too, because I try to provide links there for you all to find that additional information.
So the last thing that I'm going to say, to do want to be respectful and I'll answer any questions, is, and I think Mark did a great job of exemplifying this. Those last two bullets are important. We have to do better at understanding the services we're providing and the impact they have. So we have to measure. So our budget and performance group is helping us do better with that. APD just gave you a great example of how that can work well when you're really paying attention to data. The other piece is, for us as an organization, we are going to continue to prioritize the needs that we're hearing, and I'm going to speak to cleanliness and maintenance.
Is baseline services.
Yeah.
Clean and safe is a city service. Yep. That is not what the bid is going to be formed for.
Yeah.
So getting us in this room, since the bid is a downtown bid, it's the only one on the table right now, us in this room all on the same page of that and coordinating that with the city, I think is hugely important.
And under our charter, one of our roles is actually to bring together businesses and residents and stakeholders in downtown around these types of things. So we should host it. We should invite businesses to come and give their input at that time.
Deputy Chief Lamb and myself are on one of the bid committees, so we are certainly committed to being at this body to have those discussions. Of course, I do think, like Dana said, the chamber has to be like on point on that.
It's their process, so I think it's important.
But we want to be transparent and share information and what city core services are and should be. So.
And there's a separate committee for service establishment.
Yeah, that's the one that
we
Lamb
have
and I are
11
on.
staff people listed on that committee.
I think, Dana, you're on that too, actually.
I'm on that.
Yeah, we have like 6 people in the room that's on that bid committee, so, yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
I think that would be a good request for the chair as for an agenda item next time.
Yeah, we need to.
We just all nodded. I'm going to ask. Yeah.
Just, again, like, that probably wouldn't be Ben providing an update. So if there's probably some homework to do to figure that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Downtown Commission, Chair, Commission members.
Can we get some applause on this slide?
Design guidelines, look at that.
We are here, as you can see, to talk about the much-awaited and much-needed downtown design guideline updates. I'll try to keep it pretty brief because we're just kicking it off now and field questions, but we'll go through it. I think a lot of you have some familiarity with this, maybe not everyone with this group. Some of you have more familiarity than probably I do with this document. So, but anyhow, it was developed around 2009, 2010 as part of a downtown master plan update, and downtown design guidelines were born out of that. That essentially tries to guide good development in our downtown and our built environment. As we all know, the downtown guidelines need updating. They actually were never really completed, and for years we've been making attempts at trying to get these updated or redone. So what will happen with city staff will lead a team, hopefully with some members from this group and other boards and commissions. And then we also have some money for to hire a consultant, and we can talk about that in a little bit. Resources lead right into that, so it will be led by a city staff team. We're starting to do that kickoff now. We have a number of in-house designers, planners, landscape architects that will be leading that. We're hoping to get a working group together, and that's what I want all you to start thinking about. At least initially, what we're looking at doing is 2 members from this group, 2 members from the Design Review Committee, and a member from the Historic Resources Commission is what we're looking at to keep it kind of small and nimble to really focus on the document itself. And then we have a $50,000 budget, and really what we're looking at now is a design firm, but mainly to focus on the architectural, the vertical piece. As in-house, we have a decent amount of trained staff as landscape architects and urban designers. We do not have architects on staff, so that is our biggest gap right now as we move forward with the updates, and that's why I think the consultant money will largely look at an architectural consultant. That doesn't mean it's solely an architectural consultant. This is the process that we're looking at. We've put together an internal team now. Like I said, city staff, we're developing what that process is looking like. We want to develop this working group that I just talked a little bit about. We want to get that set up hopefully before the end of the year. However, we're probably really not going to start the heavy lift and the heavy work till after the holidays, but we at least want to stand that working group up, give people time if they want to review the documents, review past work that has been done on this. That's one thing I should have noticed. It has been a lot of work that has started on this, and staff has already started compiling all notes, all old input to use as somewhat a baseline. We'll look at that. We're not starting from zero. We'll review all that and then add to it, modify it as we feel fit. With that group, we hopefully will develop a list of elements that need to be updated. What are the big holes? What are the big issues that we see within that document? What do we need to work on? And then take that list and say, what can the working group work on? What can staff work on? And then where are our expertise gaps where we need a consultant? And then we will develop an RFQ based off of that list. So basically have to go through that document, do that inventory analysis to find out what services are we going to actually seek from a consultant. Once we get that consultant on board, we'll do some public engagement, and we'll get that worked out as we move forward. Develop a draft plan, hopefully finalize the guideline after we get that out. And then I imagine, depending on what the updates are, there'll probably be some UDO updates that will accompany that, depending on what updates will be made within that document. And that's really all I have. It's short, it's sweet. We really just want to get it in front of you, especially to start thinking about if any of you are interested in serving on that working group. Dana and myself will be following up with you to see if there is interest in who. And what we're hoping for those members will be, again, to drive, really do an inventory and analysis. Again, some of you folks know this document the best, quite frankly. You review plans through it, you design from it, you know where a lot of the gaps are already. And then that will drive what we're updating and what that process looks like.
Do we have any architects on the commission? How many? We have 4 or 5 now?
Three and a landscape architect.
3 and a landscape.
He's refined.
It's like
He's refined.
It's probably a great time to do this. We've got a lot of talent, a lot of skill set on the down, probably more now than at any other point in the downtown commission I've seen to pitch in on this. And yeah, long time coming. We'll be glad to see it. I think every meeting we've had, we've done some type of design review. We've seen some type of problem that where we were like, oh, well, we wish we had this dialed in better, or that the rules generated really non-optimal results and stuff. And so, yeah, long time coming. Glad to see it.
I know I've been taking notes as we do those design reviews, and I've shared some with staff at some point. And but every time we have a little review, like we're about to review a project, if we see something that we wish was different, we need to highlight it, write it down, catch it in that moment, and just add it to the bunch.
I'm just gonna highlight a couple key points. This is, there's work to do, and we are gonna look, there's a small budget, right? So this is staff driven and this is working group driven. So think about what you might, you're interested in participating, and let us know that. We're going to keep this an informal working group, not a formal subcommittee, so there's a little bit more flexibility to work together, so we don't need to take a vote or anything to make those appointments, but let David or I know. Hopefully we can get 2 of you to participate. I think, Brian, you participated the last time we took this on. That group worked very well, and just so you know, staff has gone through all of that previous work that was done and organized all those comments. I think we're definitely not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
So.
Insert picture here.
Insert picture here.
Yeah, exactly.
Select all and replace.
We might have to go out and take some pictures, right? We gotta work together to get this done.
I would like a T-shirt of that. City of Asheville, insert picture here.
I don't want to monopolize. I've been banging this drum for years, but I'd love to be on it. So
please be on it, Brian. Please.
But I mean, we've also got slots available from DRC. Of course, we'll probably be fighting each other to be on it from DRC too. So, thank you. First of all, thank you for putting that together, putting the timeline, actually getting doing the yeoman's work of identifying what we actually can do. So I want to make it clear, at least from my perspective, I'm not expecting this to be like a 10 or 20-year solution. I think this is kind of a Band-Aid, to be honest. I think it's a good solution. It gets us better. I don't think it gets us all the way where I'd really like to see us be, which is with a really good form-based code. But we can at least, essentially finish what we started in 2009 is really what I see this process as. So,
we'll do it in 15 years. It'll be good. 2009 to 2024.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Look forward to working with you.
And so if it sounds like we're putting a team together. So if you're interested in serving on that working group, please let me know, and I'll communicate with David and Dana, and we'll start putting a group together. And this does not have to be. I want to make this really clear. I kind of don't want this all to be a bunch of architects on this working group. Not that I don't love my people, but we need more than just my people on this. So that's clear. Thank you. I've got a job. Our next item of business, and we're going to go a little late, so if y'all can stick with me, I'd appreciate it. We have a development project impact review for 19 and 25 South French Broad. This is a level 1 review of 2 existing residential structures there. And are you doing it, Dana?
I'm not, but Clay had to run to the restroom, so
All right, we'll get it ready. So we did review this and approved it at our last design review meeting. I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder. I can present it. This is.
I was going to offer, I don't think he'll be long, but I could go through our update report, or we can.
Why don't you go ahead and start? We can start our updates and reports so that we're making good use of our time, and then drop back to this. Does anyone have an objection to that? Okay, so with that, Stephen Lee, why don't you tell us what DRC has been up to?
Sounds great. So at our last meeting, we reviewed 3 projects. One we're about to hear about, and we'll get detail on that. But as y'all probably read, 2 new hotel projects, one in informal review and one in final review. So the area west of French Broad and north of Patton is becoming Hotel Alley.
Really?
So
really is.
There's, and I think, just to keep this very brief, the developers are responding extremely well to the comments being made by the architects, and the buildings are becoming profoundly more attractive, and their design teams are being incredibly responsive to requests that are made by the design review committee. We call that, in the design world, we call that the vertical. In the horizontal, we're not seeing any budging in trying to make the pedestrian experience or the benefit for the community happen. And it's part of that is something hopefully the design guidelines are going to address, but it is looked at more as a option rather than the comments that are coming from designers regarding improving the appearance of the building from the outside. And the things we're talking about are the things that actually make a physical difference for Asheville. And we're talking about stormwater, we're talking about public, pedestrian influence and benefits, and we're also talking about heat island effect. And we're not seeing any of these addressed, and we don't have the tools, and we've been told we can't require these. And it's a big issue. And so they're coming down the pipe, folks, and they're not small, they're big. And that part of town is already subject to, dwindling infrastructure capabilities, and the city's pouring in millions of dollars to try to upgrade these, and the developers aren't taking a step forward. But having said that, the buildings are going to look nice.
I want to tag on to that just real quick to say, when we were going to get to the council update, I was going to talk to this commission about whether or not we want to see some hotel overlay review come through this body. Yeah. And in part of queuing it up for council, because we agreed to look at it regularly, and I think that should be right now. I think it's been the year. But we agree, there's a problem. Now we're going to look at 2 houses turning into hotels. So if we don't know, it almost seems like we made it not hard enough.
Well, as far as the design review committee goes, I feel like all we're doing is telling them how to make it look better, but we're not stopping or slowing anything down.
Right.
Well, and
we need, to your point, though, to Stephen Lee's point, we do need to be talking about these community impacts, really, but in the language, so that you all aren't there arguing with whether or not they should, when in fact they just have to, is what we need to get to.
Yeah. So, and the community impact checklist, they don't have to tell this body or that body. So in DRC, we're only looking at we're just applying guidelines and talking about the design. Here we're talking about the policy, but they don't care what we say because we don't have teeth anymore. And there is a clash of cultures going on with all the service delivery that happens in that part of town with all these hotels coming in. Yeah. And
it's a problem, and unfortunately, this district will be pretty crowded before we can solve any of that language. But maybe it will help future districts. I mean, I'm also curious to look at the overlay district. Is it too large? Did we spot some areas too large that we end up with this literally hotel district?
Well, I mean, before your tenure on council, this area was referred to by a councilwoman as the sacrifice zone. I think this is what it's working as intended, I think. Yeah. But I think our intentions as a community have changed once we're seeing the outcome.
Yeah, and I think, they just keep coming. Are we tired of hotels? What can we do? Let's have the whole discussion.
And the community benefits and things, sort of an economic break that has not been working, I think, as intended. The map, I think, is the true break on
the community benefits,
everything else.
If you're not aware, when we have incentive programs or benefit programs, none of that happens until the CO. So like if they're contributing funds into a housing trust fund or reparations fund, it doesn't happen until the thing is open and the first guest checks in. So we haven't seen the benefits roll out. They will come, and when millions of dollars enter the housing trust fund, we will cheer, yay, but it will be a drop in the bucket compared to the displacement from some of these hotels. So we've got to refine it. We made some progress. I think we're the only city that ever slowed it down and put a moratorium on it. So we have done some things, but I think we need to do more. Dana, go ahead.
And what I don't understand is that if the design review committee does make specific requests that are logical, they're not bizarre or overly expensive. If we do make requests and they decide not to agree on that, they just go to city council. But we're not able to do that. We've been told we're not able to do that. And if you don't make a positive impact on your heat island effect and you don't decide to do these simple, beneficial elements, then you can simply take your project to city council and we're done.
Well, the only one that's done that is One Oak Plaza. That's the only review council's seen. Maybe that's what you're referring to.
We're not allowed to say no, based on those things. So we're not sending anybody to city council.
Let me give you a specific and I'm sorry, Clay, we'll get to you. We like green roofs.
Yep.
and we think green roof is a kind of low-hanging fruit for a lot of these things. And one of the problems I have with the way, so right now they're going through the entire design process. They get to where they finally need to, before they get their certificate of occupancy, oh yeah, I need to make sure I got my community benefits. Okay, well, I'll write a check to them, and then they're done. Whereas if they had to do this at the beginning, they could say, ooh, I could put a green roof, I could do this, that, or the other, and I could check the sustainability box and actually design benefits that are 100-year benefits that will go forward with really good lighting, really good urban design. You know, as Stephen Lee's talking about, the horizontal component, the pedestrian component, because honestly, I will probably never go into any of these hotels, but I will walk past them all the time.
Yep.
And I think that's what you're kind of saying.
Yeah, that's true. And it's just very frustrating.
So,
it is. That's what
some of this is guidelines, some of this is policy.
Yep.
Because we are able to, quote, encourage them to follow the design guidelines for downtown. In the design guidelines, it states
a recommendation.
You are encouraged to implement unique and innovative stormwater measures.
Right.
But there are
You're not
none.
required. Yeah.
There
And this
are
is all
none.
state guided for those of you who are wondering.
Yeah, and
We
they
don't.
meet
Yeah.
the bare minimum standards. But those parts of the design guidelines, they can just wash over. They're not providing unique and innovative pedestrian experiences at the base of their structure. So,
Well, we can at least get them to the point where they submit the community benefits table as a part of the application. And maybe it changes as a part of the review, but we know that their intentions from the beginning, just like we do with their first site drawing, you know?
And then I think, because I think we're not getting artwork, we're not getting a lot of other than community benefits because it's too easy for them to just do the check at the end than it is to actually incorporate what they're doing as a community benefit into the project. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. We need
No
to
problem. I'm used to like virtual meetings where you can have your hand up, and now I don't know. So staff is planning to go to Planning and Economic Development Committee of Council in January with updates on the public benefits that have been achieved from the hotels. And we recognize that you all have been having this discussion every month as new hotels come before you. So what I would ask, and the November meeting falls during Thanksgiving holiday, so we'll talk about that. If there's a few key points now that you all are able to share that helps staff kind of be better informed going into those conversations, we are working towards this larger UDO update, but recognizing that this is, you know, potentially something that needs some adjustments on its own track. But so I heard submitting community benefits as part of the application, so earlier on, so that bodies like you and the public know what benefits are being achieved.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
If the community benefits are submitted before design review still can't base any decision on the community benefits. The only people who can is Downtown Commission, which can't say yes or no.
Well,
you can,
No,
but it
but what
doesn't
it
matter.
does, it does help inform the design review because they may choose green roof. They may choose things on there that influence
Well, we
the
can
discussion.
encourage.
Well, and
And
maybe
then
there
at this
could-
body, it obviously does because you will know what the other impacts other than the building stamp is in the community.
Maybe we'll broaden it to say, submit community benefits table as part of the application. And depending on what we all learn when we do this analysis, maybe there's a policy change about the public benefits table more
We're going to be
broadly.
updating that too. I think there's
Right.
changes we want.
Overlay map review, design review committee's ability to ask or require certain things.
Well, so what Stephen Lee's talking about in our last review, I don't know that we did anything really on this one, Clay. I don't remember anything, but like, so you know, we're like, Ricardo says you really need a pilaster here. That looks silly, and they're like, okay, yes, and the architect's like, absolutely, we'll put a pilaster there. Stephen Lee then says to the civil guy, I think you need to address the street, the paving in this area, and I need you to do that. And he's like, I can't. I'm not going to do that. So there's just a totally different, a totally different conversation going on where the landscape civil comments just get kind of brushed away. and whereas all the architects talking to each other seem to have a different, it's a different kind of conversation. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we're having to train and teach developers. I mean, they're just not used to these requests, but it's kind of a new day, and I mean, it needs to be required. So.
Especially if we're going to start looking at design guidelines, maybe we need to look at the design guidelines and have hotels have more requirements than other types of buildings. Because if we're basing all our yeses and nos on the design guidelines, then let's put it there.
And again, just like Stephen Lee said, so my understanding is that, you know, we can't put design guidelines on development in North Carolina per se, but we can do this two-tiered where you can comply with the recommendations of the design review, and if you don't like it and you want to do your own thing, great, go to council. You can always go to council. Yeah.
Are there any other major themes that, I feel like we're getting really good information here?
I think what would be helpful is to look at all these seeing like these things one at a time. I think what would be really helpful is to see like a spreadsheet with columns of hotels, benefits and community benefits in rows. And I bet some of those rows are totally empty, that no one has done them. And I think visually that would really help us like understand this is being used, this isn't being used. And whether that's an authority issue or a sort of an economic issue where no one's going to do that ever because the economics of it don't make sense. So I think that would really visually help us understand, you know, where the action is happening on those community benefits. And we should have a lot of columns of data now. So,
you know, if anybody wants to kind of geek out on it, I'd be interested in like a work group meetup. I don't mean a public meeting. I don't mean a working group committee. I just mean like some of us, if we want to get together and go through what we've reviewed and what the documents say, maybe have a drink or a meal.
Like a pub
and just have like a little hash it out kind of session. Because I feel like there's going to be some more in-depth stuff, and then we'll get in this formal meeting and we'll have all these other updates, and it might not all come together. Like I want to sit and review and be like, oh, remember this one? We hated that piece. Let's get it on the list. And if you are interested in that, let me know. I'd love to do that and take it right to council.
Great. Or, get it
Here
to us in the
and-
next
yeah,
month,
that's what I
and
mean.
that helps us as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But then on the other flip side of that, I would also submit that staff could, if staff could show the initial review of the developer and the final review of the developer so that we can show what the impact of the DRC has actually been. Because I think it's pretty striking usually when you guys show us this stuff, Clay, and you're like, okay, this is what they had last time, now here it is. Because that's usually like, whew, that's a whole lot better, thank you. So there are gaps, but I think DRC has actually been performing a service. Things are better than they would have been otherwise. Thank you.
All right, let's see some houses turn into hotels.
We took too long, Clay. So again, I just want to point out that Clay does a fantastic job of preparing the impact matrix, so I don't have to think. That is very good. Appreciate that. You're up.
Thank you. Sorry for being a little late. My name is Clay Mitchell, urban planner in the planning department. Chairman, commissioners, I know that you adjourned 5 minutes ago, so I will try and be quick. One thing I wanted to add, one of the things that we've done kind of informally at our staff level in the TRC is we've been asking the hotels to meet with the design review committee informally as soon as possible. So even before they're done with TRC, and I think that is at least helping a little bit because they can get the comments of the DRC before they even complete the technical review process. So that's one thing we've been able to implement immediately. And I see that the process, as much as the substance, needs to be changed when reviewing these kinds of developments. So that's going to be my kind of focus as we embark on this process.
Thank you, Clay.
Yes, and I'm here to present a hotel, because that's what I do.
Was that in the job application?
Yeah, it was not as clearly laid out. This is a interesting project. It is both process again and substance. This is only a level 1 project in the downtown, so this project does not get reviewed by Will or I, at kind of our level, it gets reviewed by level 1 staff. But because it's a hotel in the downtown, it does go to the design review committee, so we take over there. What is also interesting about this project is it's a reuse of existing buildings, and the design review committee reacted positively to that. It's going to get further complicated by the fact that there is a right-of-way between the two buildings that you can see on this plan, which will require that component of it to go to the technical review committee. So a lot of these projects have a lot of procedural steps, and this one's probably one of the more complicated. From the matrix overall, my comments were pretty general in terms of a positive reaction to adaptive reuse rather than tearing down the buildings and filling the lot up. They are meeting all of the design review guidelines. They're showing street trees, as you can see along the sidewalks, widening of the sidewalks to the compliant 10 feet. There's going to be a lot of stormwater work. I think the stormwater department has asked for a complete report. That, I assume, is forthcoming. And it is a joint application for both parcels, which are going to be merged, and the total number of rooms on the site is going to be 15. It's in an area between, I think, CDC's offices are immediately to the north, the 27 Club, and to the south is kind of that multi-use building that has Little B in it and Paula in the coffee shop. So it's in a space, and you guys, of course, will discuss this, where there's increasing pedestrian activity. There's a lot of different types of uses around there, so it's going to fit into that fabric. It is another hotel, and that's basically the sum of my presentation. Any questions?
Yeah, so I am generally in support of adaptive reuse. We didn't really talk about this at DRC. Stephen was pointing out to me at the time, you know, the one to the south has about 10 mailboxes. I think the one to the north, it's got a mailbox piece on it now, maybe 5 to 7 units. So you're talking about probably somewhere around 15, you know, residential units that are being displaced.
So that's in their rubric or their community benefits table, right?
Isn't it? Did they say anything about that?
No. My understanding was that the north building was a law office or something.
Okay.
That some of those are commercial units.
So the one...
those also count as displacement points. Both
Pardon me?
commercial and residential.
Yeah, it still counts as displacement, but this is why we need to have that benefits table at the beginning.
But if it's been over 2 years since they've been used, then they do not count. So if the units have been vacant for 2 years, then it does not count as displacement. So it may be that they've sat on the property for 2 years. And it's empty. I don't know.
Vacating them, waiting 2 years.
Right.
So again, that's not something DRC looks at,
Right.
but that's something that we look at, right? And should look at, because when you're talking about, you know, one of the things you said you deferred to the applicant on the subject of equity, racial justice. I could also I could pull that in. I could pull livability. I could pull in urban design. When you take, you know, buildings that can provide probably, you know, some kind of affordable housing, and they become a hotel.
Yeah, what I'm a little surprised at is, like, I just looked up the.
No, I'm tickled. I'm so sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just looked up the land value per acre. What's the appraised land value per acre? It's exactly the same valuation per acre, a little over $1 million, as 30 Carter Street, 25 South French Broad is. I'm wondering, why didn't they demolish? Like,
so these houses are on the historic register. I think I just said.
They're going to do historic.
And they're getting historic tax credits for the project. And so I am, and so I'm appreciative of preserving. My preservation hat comes on, and I'm like, okay, I like, you know, keeping existing stock. The most sustainable resources you use are the ones you reuse. So, you know, all that conversation kind of comes in, and I appreciate a developer taking rundown buildings and restoring them and maintaining them and preserving that going forward, because it could go back, you know, a hotel room can become somebody's apartment later on. So I appreciate that part of it. I just want to recognize that we are, because of the hotel thing, we are incentivizing, displacing.
I've known people who live there.
Yeah. So I just want to, I don't know what we do about it, I just want to show that that's what's going on.
The irony here is too, this morning as I was getting ready to come to the meeting, I hear Biden administration encourages conversion of empty offices to affordable housing. There's like $1 billion, you guys read the same article? Like, what is it, billions of dollars coming from the federal government to do the opposite of what's happening here right now. And I think that just shows us how sort of topsy-turvy land we are in Asheville with all these conflicting incentives between what we need and what the TDA is doing and what our actual abilities are.
If I could stop it, I would.
Depends who you ask what we need, though.
First,
Because I tried to book a room for somebody this week, and all the rooms were $600 a night.
Well,
So
it's
when,
season.
right, what we need, it differs for everybody.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
they're
what's
coming
being said
because they're
about
gonna
the
make money.
hotels on
Yeah.
the West Arkansas district.
Right.
Or they're same developer, they're
$600
different
a night.
pricing too, so they capture the lower.
Yeah, that's right, last weekend, this weekend. Okay, so, sorry, Clay. So do we have any specific, so Clay has put together the development matrix that, this is not something that Jefferson that we're limited to, but this is a really good tool that we've used to kind of go through these things. So in the process, we don't approve this or we're just making the discussion. What we're actually doing is we're informing staff what we think our policies are generating. So we're not really reviewing the application so much as I think we're reviewing how this application is giving the city certain outcomes and what we think staff should be doing maybe differently or what we need to be advising council on policy changes thereof. Does that make sense? I think I captured that. Again, you know, I appreciate the project because they're taking, you know, they're not, they could knock everything down and completely fill the site with impervious surface, you know, and they're not doing that, yay. So from a parking multimodal, you know, they don't have to park, but they're providing parking, that's good. You know, they're taking 2 existing structures and turning them that, you know, and turn them into a viable business.
Hotel requires parking.
No, they have to have parking.
That's right.
Just hotels.
Just hotels, but they're not taking over the whole site for parking. They're not, you know, putting in a deck or anything like that. I appreciate personally, you know, that they're not putting a great big, you know, 4-story, 115-room hotel on this. You know, that the massing's going to stay small. That we're going to, you know, maintain and preserve some tree canopy and, you know, pedestrian experience. From the old gas company building down French Broad, that's kind of nice.
Well, and this architect has done more than 50 buildings in downtown, I think half of which were historic restoration.
That's
so
right.
At least the work and the design will be phenomenal.
Well, and the other
use, not
positive
so excited about.
is that this developer is a really savvy hospitality developer. So we
Is
don't
it?
have somebody come in on a shoestring budget. I mean, they're the real deal.
Is this somebody that's already a developer of hotels in the community?
Yeah, I believe they're doing 149 Biltmore, right below the Orange Pool, though. So
Is this another facade preservation thing too?
I don't know.
Can I ask a question? Please. With the impact matrix, to Ava Michelle's point about how expensive hotels can be, and I think that's sort of the other side of this conversation is always, well, we need more hotels to bring down the cost, and hotels provide jobs, but is there ever a conversation in these applications about committing to paying a living wage?
Yeah, it's on there.
And also committing to not charging $1,000 a night for a room. Like if the whole point of more hotels is that a wider market reduces the value of each room, but then no one actually subscribes to that, and they just keep charging $1,000. Doesn't that sort of change the idea of market?
I don't know that we can tell them how much to charge, but
Well,
all we can do
ask
is,
what's
we
the price
incentivize.
Sure.
That community benefits table we were just talking about has that on there, like, do you pay a living wage, earned you some points? And then the size of the hotel and how many rooms determines how many points you need. But
Who
room
enforces
cost
that?
is an interesting one.
Who enforces, so if they check
That
the
would be
box on
Mark,
living
who was here
wage-
earlier, and his DSD
Sure.
compliance team. And just, I assume, like affordable housing incentives, that we have an open book rule, we can go and pull their rent rolls.
That could be a tricky one, though, because then you don't want to incentivize a no-tell motel coming in.
Sure. Well,
hourly rates or something.
This is my first meeting. So
you're doing great.
Like the thing about all these conversations have ended in the same point, which is there's all these sort of recommendations without power, and there's also sort of this really broad language that everyone has questions about that no one can answer, or they don't want to take the time to answer because they said it's not worth it to them. And so then we're left to the same point, which we're not informed, and there's no power. And so I'm sort of curious if part of this application process or any of this can be us looking at the goal end result of this open hotel, so we can decide if we like it, if it's worth having a conversation about should it actually just be affordable housing.
If we could enforce any of that, but yeah.
Or even
you basically deduced in your one meeting what all of us have a year-long frustration over.
Well, from a communication standpoint with the community, like, we could all move on to other things if we had clarity on some of this other stuff.
Yeah. And if we had more power.
And I've got a hunch that row for living wages is going to be empty for all these hotels.
It might be.
It is.
So, yeah. And
yeah. Well, and the living wage keeps jumping dramatically.
Because they're rent.
Because we keep turning houses into hotels. Sorry.
Yeah. This is a Earl Gross problem.
To Jefferson, to your point, that's part of what we're trying to tell staff to measure, so that we can then update the hotel overlay district.
And so it funded the whole thing.
And nothing gets done if we don't talk about it. We might not get it done, but it's definitely not going to happen if we don't talk about it.
Do we have any other questions or comments for Clay?
Will you tell them it should just be housing? Sorry.
Pardon me?
Tell them it needs to be housing.
I will tell them that. I would like to point out that there is actually a hotel called the No-Tell Motel in Tucson, Arizona.
She wasn't listening. There's a No-Tell Motel in Tucson, he said.
There's some here. I mean,
No, it's actually called that. Like, that's on the sign.
oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I feel like you weren't supposed to tell us that.
I think the conversation that you're having about the benefits table is interesting. My look at it and the thing, and I'm sorry to diverge a little bit, but I'm trying to take notes, is there's going to have to be some enforcement mechanism, and also there has to be a relief valve if somebody changes. What happens if they decide they're not going to do this? What happens if the entity that owns it is no longer a B Corp? How do we even deal with that? And so I've been thinking about this kind of, from a lawyer's perspective, and so there's some things that I hope to add to the conversation, but I think it's important that we talk about this.
I think we were betting on the fact that it'd probably not be chosen. And then we wouldn't have to enforce it. Things like B Corp and living wages. We kind of assumed, well, we'll put it in there. It sounds like a great idea, but they probably won't use it.
Then,
aspirational.
Okay. But to my point earlier, maybe we're not being hard enough. I mean, they're certainly going up fast. So the community benefits table isn't belaboring it so much that they're like, forget it.
I don't feel like we're being hard at all.
Well, yeah, there we go.
It's $600 a night.
Well, let's not forget, if we open up, well, they're not all 600, but if we open up the hotel overlay district for changes and codifying changes, we could change the room number that triggers points. We could change the point scale. We can do things. We have power, but it's instead of reactive wishing we had power, we just got to front end it. Let's just move quicker. Let's have that get together soon.
But even with your point about, like, you're talking about the actual Watchdog series that's coming out, at the core of this entire conversation is if the penalty and the enforcement is all about money, you're just inviting richer people because they can afford all of this. And so that's why Asheville is having this problem, because it's just people who are buying their way out of rules.
Sometimes. Sometimes, and then, when we talk about tourism and how people find this community, the TDA and its metrics on who they advertise to is also enlightening, because if I recall, it's been a few years since I've seen this, so this could be outdated, but they were targeting people whose minimum income was $75,000. And so you're not even inviting folks to the community. Maybe they can't afford the hotels, to your point, but there's just a target audience. There's a whole thing. It's kind of gross.
when I have conversations with people who work for, dollars per hour, none of them are concerned about the wealth of visitors. All of them are concerned about the wealth of their neighbors and what they can afford their rent. I
agree.
This is a kind of an odd discussion. It doesn't really change, I think, much of our residents who I don't represent tourists anywhere I go.
No.
I represent myself and my neighbors and the community interests as I see it here. And none of that, I think, contains the price tag of a hotel. It might be an incidental fact that we have to deal with, but it is not a metric I'm trying to budge for any reason. Rents, affordability, and wages is what I care about.
Think about this, though, because I think you're studying econ, right?
Yep.
So when we only attract wealthy individuals by way of advertising, we know a substantial amount of people relocating here say, well, I visited last year and I loved it, so I'm moving here. So who we advertise to and what demographic they make up does actually influence our residential population. I don't know what, mathematically, statistically it is, but it does. And we need to be advertising to folks that we want to see as our neighbors.
But also, if more people could own a home, then a visitor coming for the first time with $2 million in their pocket wouldn't have the power to scoop up the last affordable house in Kenilworth.
Right.
Because people who were living there for the last 30 years already bought that house.
Yep.
Right. That's part of this, is the availability of and access to money.
Which is why, as an affordable housing advocate, I will say we also need $2 million houses.
Yes, for sure. But also, that's why the work that the land trusts are doing are really important, because they're encouraging people on how they leave, where they leave their land to when they die, and they don't have kids and things like that.
An unfortunate fact here that makes a lot of our issues less resilient as far as affordability goes, as far as short-term to long-term, or long-term to short-term conversions, is we have a really low home ownership rate in our community. We're like in the bottom quartile nationwide as far as how many of our residents own the homes they live in. That means that about half of our folks are renters. And that means that we have a tremendous amount of our human capital to lose very quickly due to changing affordability issues. Zero resilience in renters, other than year-to-year leases.
I think we ticked up to 52% renters now.
Yeah, and that's I think national average is like 70 or 72%, and
it's horrible.
We're way, way, way low, which makes us very not resilient for a lot of these affordable issues.
Sorry, Clay.
I'm a renter. I would like to own a house.
Okay, folks probably want to go home too. All right.
Clay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I would just want to point out that the number one item on the level 1 staff review is about the benefits table. So I will convey your concerns and recommendations to the planner reviewing it so that she has support from this commission.
Two problems on the matrix. It says that there's 8 guest rooms. I heard there are 15.
Yeah, there are 15.
Okay. It also still says Project Aspire, which has a lot more than 8.
One building has 8, and I didn't see the other building with the 7.
They're getting merged, though, right? They're going to do a property merge.
Yeah,
that right of way.
That's why it has to actually go to the technical review committee, because of that right of way.
Yeah, because it almost looks like it's 2 applications that are about to be turned into one.
It is the most procedurally complex application we've looked at, I think. Bouncing all over. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, so we've already had our design review committee discussion. We're moving into updates and reports. We're going to try to do this in 5 minutes. Thank you so much for going at least 30 minutes over. Asheville Downtown Association, Jessica is not with us. One thing that if y'all can help me to remember, so the ADA does the sidewalk survey usually. I think we need to ask them if they would do with that a lighting survey.
Yeah, so I don't know. Because it's my previous role, I facilitated the last walkability study is what we called it. It was a little challenging to get people to go in the evening hours since it's all volunteer-based.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of interest in that, and I know that it's probably something that could be added. We would just have to, it would just be a coordination effort.
I had that thought when Mark was giving his presentation, that we need to have a way to have that input, and that volunteer survey seemed to be very, we identified things, and I've seen things that I saw that I flagged, they fixed them. Yes?
Regarding lighting, we have a new dashboard that shows where lighting outages have been reported or observed. And the Asheville app is just the ideal way to report those, but there is that new platform that you all will have access to.
That's addressing like, okay, this spotlight. I'm talking about, I walk into a street, so one of the things that the walkability survey, is like, there's no sidewalk here.
Yes, sidewalks, absolutely.
And so I'm talking about, I walk into a street and I'm like, whew, I don't want to walk down this because it's dark. And you know what I'm trying, that kind of level of survey would be good information for the city to have. And I don't know who's doing that, so 88 sounds like the right person. So sorry, Jessica, just assign something to you. Homeless initiatives.
Ben Woody had a slide that covered everything on my report, but you can also look at my report.
Very well done. Well done. Well done. General downtown updates.
Robin is very kind to keep up with all of the amazing work that's happening around homelessness in the community, and I went ahead and put it under future agenda items, but I figured you all would appreciate some updates from Emily Ball in December, so I've gone ahead and plugged that in, sure. I'm gonna pull this up. So Dana Frankel with the Planning Department. You heard updates from Ben Woody today and others, but I just am providing a few links here. So the update provided by the Fire Department on the Community Responder Program just earlier this week. There's a link to the presentation here and the recording. The learning series on homelessness. There's sessions scheduled for November and December, so more information is also available on that in the link. And as Ben mentioned, we are sending these monthly newsletters. I think I may have put everyone on the commission on that contact list during the safety initiative. I'll have to get Jefferson on the contact list. If you don't feel like you've gotten them, please just check it out and sign up, and encourage your neighbors and friends to sign up. Patton Avenue Sidewalk Project. There was approval at the last council meeting to allocate HUD funding towards the replacement of a section of sidewalk on Patton Avenue. There's more information on the link that I provided. I think there's still some more work to do in terms of communications and trying to mitigate some of the negative impacts of any construction of this nature on those businesses. A request was made at council that the work impacting most businesses waits till after the holiday season, so hopefully that will be possible. Outdoor dining program update. City Council unanimously approved those at their last meeting. So we'll be rolling out in the next 2 weeks a lot more information to businesses looking to AIR to help us get that information out. The application process will open November 13th and for the new permit period beginning in January. And thanks to everyone for the input and the work on all of that. It's a long time coming, and it's just one tiny little step, but I think it's an example of how we can be more thoughtful about managing public spaces within our downtown. Thanks especially, Andrew, you've been real close to this issue for a really long time, so thank you for all the work and input. Carter and Patton Stormwater. There's a lane closure eastbound, and there's still activity happening. I guess the team discovered more utilities that they were not aware of, so they're doing some more research on kind of what makes the most sense in terms of phasing from here.
Is that sidewalk going all the way to the corner of French Broad?
It is.
Because I've been following it, and it's like up by 27 Club now, and it's got one more building to go. They're working on it this morning as I drove in. And that's where it ends, and then it's
yes, it ends there
with utility complications.
Correct.
Okay.
But it will continue. So it ends at French Broad. Yeah. Downtown public restroom. We have been working on this project to install a standalone facility in this public space off College and Rankin. Next steps are that there's going to be a meeting on November 15th to come back and share what this space is going to look like and how that restroom will be situated based on input we previously received and other factors, including budget. Patton Avenue corridor study. So A couple of you were on the working group for that. Brian, you're one of them, and Eva Michelle, you're another. Oh, and Nur, 3 of you, great. I don't know if you've heard from Vidilla yet, but okay, great. There's a public meeting to kick off the project on November 29th, and then I think from there, you all will be working with staff to move that project forward. College Patent bike lanes, you all have probably tuned in or are aware at this point, but that project was approved by council at their October 10th meeting, and we expect installation in the spring. And that's all I've got, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Outdoor dining went through, too. Did you mention that while I was up?
No, I was talking right to you.
Oh, yeah, outdoor dining. Sorry.
I said thanks for all your hard work.
It's that time of the semester right now. Yes. I have to go to school after this.
No, it's notable.
That's not just me.
Again, no, I think it's worth restating. I think this project is an example of how we can be really thoughtful about how public spaces are being utilized, and it's a balance, right? Charging the fees are going to go up for a lot of businesses, and we're hopefully capturing public benefits around all of this and managing this activity in a way that ensures accessibility and ensures the success of businesses. It's a balance.
And I heard some of the discussion at council as it was being talked about and approved, and about talk about some of the things that we didn't do in it. And I think it makes a lot of sense about what we did first, because it's going to open up some things. It accounts for like a lot of existing uses that need to, have a compliant structure that is positive and is working. But also now it leads the way for other stuff that we can do based on that framework, and it establishes a lot of points that we can build off of in the future. So I want to acknowledge that yes, it's not an everything. It wasn't an everything program, but it really leads the way to next steps. So thank you.
City council updates, and then we'll get into our informal discussion and we'll wrap it up.
I spoke to it earlier. I was going to talk to y'all about the hotel district, and then I had Ben come and we had talked beforehand about all the items to update you on. So I feel like everything I could have shared is in there, but I'm also always welcome to questions. Any questions? Okay. Nothing?
You heard what we're wanting. I mean, we need to, so there's procedural things with the public benefits table. I'm open to looking at what is in the overlay district.
Okay. Any other things in general that this commission wishes to hear about or see in the pipeline? Big things like hotels and, okay. More bike lanes? Please. You heard it right from them.
I gotta say, the bike lanes are like one of the most approved projects. Council approved it twice. We've approved it 2 or 3 times. I feel
can we just address that the problem is not with bike lanes, right? In general, like no one cares about bike lanes overall.
The problem is that we are starting by hanging the chandelier in the house when the exterior walls are not built.
I spoke to this at council. We're talking about there's so many things that downtown needs, so this just doesn't seem like the most pressing. But it will be done next year, so you know.
First the year after.
I don't know about that. But I did share at council, I was the swing vote on this actually, so I did share at council that we have to be experimental sometimes. Downtown is changing. We obviously have a lot of tourism. It's changed a lot in the last 30 years. It used to be boarded up. We don't want to go back towards that way. A lot of cities are having closures. A lot of cities are seeing 10%, 20% of stores closed. We don't have those problems, right? But we do need to be experimental. If all we're seeing in downtown are certain demographic, maybe we'll see a younger demographic if we have bike lanes and e-scooters. We have to experiment, in my opinion. And this downtown is the place to do it, not our neighborhoods.
I'm begging for infrastructure that gets me out of my car.
I did bring it up. Sorry.
So
we're going to do Arden next.
Very quickly. Very quickly. So upcoming items for discussion. I am very interested in what we need to be doing to support the bid and or maybe we need to be the conduit of information, I think, from certain constituencies and from council and staff to the bid. I think they've got their own, but I don't know what we can do to help or how we can be involved in that, but I'm very interested in what's going on and how we can
It's going to move quick, I understand. March is like a deadline of some sort. And I think it would be very helpful if this commission made a recommendation, whether it's yay or nay. So if you can get informed enough, and I'm meeting with the crew next week, and I will request that they come. But if you all can get to a place where you know enough to feel comfortable making a recommendation either way, it would be great.
The chamber currently has a pretty quick survey out for downtown stakeholders. So if you haven't filled that out, we can share that.
And I know that Kit Kramer is definitely planning on coming here or requesting to come here at the time that they feel like is right in terms of the rollout for this. So.
Okay.
I had a meeting with a representative from the chamber and expressed my, conditional concerns about there being tenant and worker representation on that board. I'd like to see, a more resilient board made up of people of broader stakeholders than just people with enough money.
Okay. I don't know what we need to do, if we need to do anything, if we just need to stay out of the way. I'll let you guys inform me on that.
Right now. I mean, the steering committee has had one meeting.
Okay.
The consultant group that the chamber has hired to lead the process is coming November 13th to 15th. And so we won't know more until after that, but it is a quick timeline.
Okay.
And Hayden, who, the executive director of the Downtown Association, I think will start attending these meetings in January. And
Yes.
She'll be very tied into the bid process, so she'll have a lot of information.
Okay, thank you. Our next meeting is scheduled for the day after Thanksgiving. I'm not coming, so just not coming. So I would.
Y'all gonna cancel my second to last meeting? I'm just kidding.
Are we canceling?
I won't be here either. Yeah. I got a day off of school.
Let's cancel.
I mean, unless anyone has an objection, I don't know of any pressing business that we have to do. I think we can move most of these kind of discussions to December. It doesn't sound like the bid process would need us for anything in November. It could handle it in December.
Are we concerned about the December date?
It's the 22nd.
Yeah, but we're going to have the same problem.
Should we maybe just do like a combo meeting earlier in December?
That's a good idea.
I think we could do that if we
Y'all want
can
to
do
get
it.
that date together right
Let's
now?
do a doodle poll or something like that, because I have no idea.
Look at second or third Friday, probably.
Yeah, something like that.
December
Thank
15th.
you.
Yeah, December 15th.
December 15th. Look at that. December
Saved so
15th.
much time thinking.
Yes.
I doodle.
I can. You said the 15th?
Sure.
I can do that.
I'll check with Emily Ball. Hopefully she's still available.
Okay.
But
And
great.
this room and all the things.
That is the day after a design review committee meeting, if anybody cares.
I'm exhausted anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay. I just didn't know
I'm
if you
just
wanted to get
always
some work done that
exhausted,
week.
so-
Fridays. Yeah. Friday's a burnout day.
Okay. Any other things we need to think about? Please let me know if there's things we need on the agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, leave. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.